Timothy Taylor. Timothy, there you go.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, Timothy Taylor, 50 North Front Street, 38103. Mr. Chair, beg your pardon? A number of individuals came in and signed cards to speak, and they didn't know the agenda item they were going to be speaking on, and they donated their time to me. So there may be some cards up there showing time donated to me up to about 14 minutes. I would like to use that time at this point.
Sure. He'll take out the cards.
Okay, thank you. That way, because
This is instead of 14 minutes.
This is the agenda item they wish to address. Thank you. With that, as many of the members of the council may know, my name is Timothy Taylor. Once again, I'm an attorney here in Memphis. I'm here tonight representing Operating Engineers Local 369. First, I would like to, on behalf of the operating engineers, I would like to send a thank you out to the Police Association and the Firefighters Association for drawing a great deal of public attention to this issue, which affects the operating engineers as well as other city employees, including police and fire. My clients wanted to add their voice to that, and their jobs are not as visible as police and fire. They basically inspect, maintain, repair, and keep the city running. The city does not take care of itself. They take care of it. Specifically, just to make... Specifically, for those who are not aware, these are the employees of the animal shelter to keep the strays off the street. They're construction inspectors who make sure that buildings and structures on city property are safe. We have the heavy equipment operators who drive the machinery, who repair the sewers and repair the streets. And full 1/2 of the employees represented by the operating engineers deal with sewage. Sewers, they treat it, they process it, they unclog it, and they move it. And for the members of the audience, I would have to say, lower your expectations. I'm not a city employee, and I'm not a representative of one of the unions, so I haven't had the personal experiences that many of the speakers have had here tonight, so I can't bring that to this. I can only point out a few things which I think the council will find interesting and that my clients are also interested in expressing. First thing is, and this applies primarily to the operating engineers but also to other employees, is the enterprise funds. A majority of the operating engineers' positions are funded by one of the enterprise funds, either sewer, solid waste, or stormwater. These are revenue-generating funds. Based on the information we've received from the city for several years, the enterprise funds are well-funded. They're stable and they're solvent. As of last year, approximately 867 city employees were in positions funded by an enterprise fund. That's between 13 to 15% of city employees. While a solution that would affect them would not be sufficient to take care of everyone, that's 13 to 15% of money you don't have to try to find because it's already there. A position that is funded by the enterprise fund, it funds the employee's salary, the employee's contribution to the health care comes out of it, the employee's contribution to the pension comes out of it, and based on the information that we have, the city's portion of the pension contribution and the city's portion of the insurance premium come out of that fund. So if you're an enterprise fund employee, you're thinking, why are my premiums going up? Why are my pension benefits being affected if the city's saying the enterprise funds are all paid for? That's a legitimate question. Another legitimate question is whether the funding of these positions has been taken into account when we're talking about the amount of money needed to address this problem. Is the amount, as we know through budget processes and impasse processes and pension discussions, the numbers that we receive tend to change throughout the discussion. The operating engineers want to make sure that the fact that the benefits associated with their positions already funded has been taken into account to where, once again, the council realizes the amount of money you have to find may not be at least as big as you think it is. And once again, this is a big problem. One big solution may not be the answer. It may be several smaller solutions, and that's one we would suggest. Another issue is the insurance premiums themselves. Of course, the city's self-insured is not supposed to profit off health coverage, but like an insurance company, it makes up a cost based on a group of employees. Or excuse me, on a group of people. Traditionally, that group has included the retirees. So when they calculate the cost to pay for the health care, you have both retirees and active employees involved in it, which means that the premium paid by a young active employee is actually going to subsidize the health insurance that's for a retired employee. Now, that's not just an issue of spreading the risk now. That's an issue of investing in the future. The retirees who are retired now paid their premiums back then. Part of their payment went to subsidize their health care. That was an investment they made. I don't think they anticipated that investment would have such catastrophic consequences. The premiums being paid by the active employees now are not only subsidizing the current retirees, they're investments for their future, because everybody's going to get there. They're all going to retire at some point, and they were putting that forward for that purpose. Once again, they did not make the investment thinking those benefits weren't going to be there, especially considering the representations of the city throughout in the recruiting and up until this point. Finally, the last point I want to make, and I'm not going to use my entire 14 minutes, relates to pilot programs. There's been other speakers about these pilot programs. Now, it's easy for some to dismiss the concerns that have been expressed by pilot programs. And those the people who would dismiss those concerns would say that the pilots bring growth and jobs to the area. Maybe, maybe not. Just recently, the Washington Post published an article on a study by a professor at Washington University in St. Louis. He presented the results of this study at a conference put on by the Kauffman Foundation, and this article was actually reprinted in the Commercial Appeal within the past week or so. And of this professor's findings, he said that they didn't refer to them as pilot programs, that's Memphis's unique term, but tax incentives basically were not a sustainable method to promote economic growth either nationally or locally. In his study, 6 years after the incentives were received, the firms who received the incentives generated slightly fewer jobs than the firms who didn't receive the incentives. He found that there was no evidence that tax incentive programs had a positive effect on job creation. He found that 1/3 of tax incentive programs had no formal review process to make sure the recipients lived up to their representations. He also found that most of the programs he studied had no clawback provisions. In other words, we give you a pilot, you come in, you say you're going to create a certain number of jobs at a certain wage and make this amount of capital investment. A clawback provision would allow the municipality to get some of the pilot money back. And most of the ones he studied did not have a clawback provision, and he said that's one of the major problems with these tax incentive programs in municipalities, not just in Memphis, but across the country. It's just not a viable way forward. At a more local level, the Memphis and Shelby County Economic Development and Growth Engine, EDGE, did a compliance study in 2013 on pilots that were granted in 2011. I think one of the previous speakers alluded to it. Of 6 out of the 10 companies that compliance study looked at self-reported that they were failing to meet their job creation, their wage, and their capital investment commitments. This is the companies themselves, 6 out of the 10, that Memphis gave pilots to, saying we're not going to make it. We can't do it. This is exactly the situation that causes outcry among not only the citizens of Memphis, but the employees as well. Taxpayer dollars were spent to lure employers here with the promise, or at least the implication, that they would provide economic growth, jobs, good jobs, and some capital investment. And at least based on the EDGE study from 2013, 6 out of 10 haven't done it. It didn't indicate, I don't have the information as to which ones, but still it's a number to be aware of. And that's also the situation that Professor Jensen indicates should be addressed if these programs are to continue, and that is to have a rigorous review process and a clawback provision. So if it's going to be done, do it right. Do it where it makes a difference to the city and not just a big PR event when the company originally arrives here and then doesn't provide the benefits that it promoted that it would. And once again, I think, frankly, that all the speakers have been up before me, the ones who've had direct experience of this situation, and the ones from whom you've heard in a more informal fashion, shall we say.